So we have 27 properties that we've bought together in the last like 2.5 years. And we're buying about one a week or so right now, and we're working up to buying one a day.
Welcome back to the Mom's Wealth Club podcast. Today's guest is Keila Torres. She's a Chicago real estate investor and business owner. So she tells me real estate runs pretty deep in her family, from Airbnbs on her dad's side to renovations and new construction on her mom's side. But it was purchasing her first multifamily property that set everything in motion. And so she blows my mind with how many properties they have in the hopper, and they get it done. I'm excited to just talk about her journey, and I think you're really going to love this one. So, Keila, welcome. I am so excited to have this conversation today, and thank you so much for agreeing to be on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you, Lynn, so much for having me. It's been great growing with you as well over the last couple years and going to some conferences together and things like that. So I was really honored when you asked me to speak with you today.
You know what? I admire you so much because I remember you had been in with your current team or a version of your current team when we first met, but you were still pretty green. You're still working full time and you were
Yep.
just committed. I'm going to learn whatever it takes and we're going to make this happen. And I know that it's taken a lot of humility along the way, biting your tongue as you're learning, winning, losing, all of the things. So, just kind of tell me what that part of the journey's been like for you.
The learning part.
Anything. I mean, it's been crazy. So yeah, tell me from being a woman in construction, determined to make it happen. Tell me what it's been like.
Yeah, I mean, I think I am in a league of my own sometimes in how hard I work toward things. I don't always feel like I am as gifted or, can run the numbers in my head as fast or things like that. So I've always thought that like I'll just take everything I do have and then just work really hard and eventually I'll get where I want to be. So for the most part, that's what I've done with this. I got really lucky to meet my partner, Arpan, in the beginning of my journey in 2022, right after I bought that house, and just start talking real estate and get on the journey that I am right on right now. I The woman part of it, I definitely is interesting. Like I just went down to North Carolina with four other guys, all, stuck in my car for a road trip. And I was just like laughing the whole time because I was like, most women would not be comfortable with this. And I grew up with my dad for most of my teenage years, and so I'm very, very comfortable with men because of that. And also just construction. My mom was in construction and interior renovations too, so she was used to being around a lot of men as well. So I'd say like that's probably why I'm as comfortable as I am. I'm just, a little bit more laid back or down to earth or whatever, because of that. And it's served me really well in the world that I'm in right now with real estate.
I love it. So take me back to that first multifamily. Were you on your own when you did it? And what was that? Were you just scared, like underneath it all and going for it? Walk us through what that was like.
Yeah, so it kind of just like happened. I was working with this guy who was a realtor and who was buying multi-units in the neighborhood that I bought in. And he was probably trying to sell me on some degree or whatever, but he also like taught me a lot about the whole process and about how much I needed to start and just like buying a turnkey multi-unit property and like sharing all of his spreadsheets and things like that and kind of helping get me set up correctly. So I think I used, his knowledge and expertise as long as I could, for over the first year until I started to really build up my own network of, handy people and, vendors and things like that that could help me out. But yeah, I think I was more scared after I bought the house, to be honest, because he kind of he and the mortgage broker just kind of like walked me through everything. And I had the money saved up from COVID. And I'm like, well, this makes sense. I'm going to be paying a lot more or a lot less per month than rent, right? So, and I'd be buying into, working on building up that equity, right? So I think that like they kind of got me through that whole process, even though I didn't totally understand everything I was looking at, and like how much I bought it for and what those payments were going to look like every month. But I will, yeah, so I will say like it really, I grinded it out that first year doing it all by myself. And the cool thing about house hacking, which is what I was doing, right, is that um, you can qualify as an individual based on one income because of the other two units or however many other units are, that's part of the income as well. So I thought, yeah, learning about that was really cool. Learning to be a landlord for the first time was really crazy without any classes or course, without any education on that. That was probably the hardest part because my dad, and my mom, I could use them a lot for knowledge on how to maintain the property, but how to actually take, handle communications and conflict and things like that with the tenants. That was a first for me. So, and my friend, Levi, the one who got me into the property, he, helped me with those initial conversations and just seeing like his very assertive, direct nature in that, and doing it for me. It was interesting, and I was like, okay. I like the way that he doesn't really leave a lot of gray area, in the way he talks to tenants. But over the, couple of years, I've found that the way I talk to tenants is different than a lot of the way that some of the men in my life would probably talk to them.
Yeah, we got to find our own voice, right? But
Yeah.
it does help to have somebody else's script so you can see how it's done. And then as you get your confidence, then it becomes yours. Having a multifamily and tenants in Chicago is another whole ball of wax because of all the intricacies of Chicago. Were your tenants holdover tenants? Were they there when you took over the property or were they brand new to you?
They were there when I bought the property, so I inherited them and I didn't really know otherwise, so that was one of those parts where I was like not super versed in do I want to inherit the other person's problems type of thing, and one of them worked out really well and the other one didn't. And so
So
that was wild kind of dealing with that for the first time, giving a 5 day, not actually having to go through with it because they paid me and ended up moving out. But it was really, yeah, challenging to do that and like I guess with the demographic I have in my units, I was there, they don't really know better. But if I had like tenants that did know all of the laws and leases and all that stuff, they might have been able to, talk back against me or like argue with me a lot more, and I wouldn't have known what to say. So that was the part that was really scary for me initially was like, okay, how do I prepare myself for this conversation, And I'm living in the house too,
right.
So and then I just got to walk back upstairs and like ruined their night, or whatever. Uh,
So, were they paying market rent? Did they have a lease to month to month? Did they have a lease? Were they paying market rent? What was the situation like with these tenants?
to be honest, I don't remember, but we did sign new leases. I signed new leases with them right when I moved in. So I don't know if that just voided the old ones or what, but I basically signed 1 year with the first floor tenant and then the basement tenant, I signed only 5 months, which actually ended up working out really well for me because of them not paying.
Wow.
But no, they were not market rents. I mean, they were lower than that.
So now, so your house hacking, are you still living in that property or have you put someone in your unit?
I am actually still living there. I'm not living in the same unit though as when I first started. So when I first started, I was like, I don't want to be in the basement. Like I'd rather take the second floor unit. That one's the nicest, you know. So I ended up moving into that one for, oh gosh, probably like 2 years. And then I moved out for about 6 months. Was planning to be out longer than that. It just didn't work out that way. And I had someone move into the second floor. And then when I was moving out, I decided to move back into the garden unit and renovate it. I had to renovate it because I had a flood and I had to replace the whole sewer line and everything. So I had to like replace all the drywall and I got to make some upgrades to it just because we were reframing and re-drywalling and stuff like that that made it nicer. And then yeah, I've actually really liked living there. I've been there like over 2 years now.
Also, when
Yeah.
we first move in, like for me, I'd be like, I want to be in the nice unit. But now you're building a business. You're in the build stage, the I need
Mhm.
capital phase. So maybe going in a unit that wouldn't normally bring in as much money as the other one makes more sense. And then you're just kind of forced into it. And it works out, I guess, sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was there so little anyway, it didn't really matter, as I was doing all, running around working full time and also doing the real estate. So, but also like it was a big difference once I was able to get the market rents up over the last couple years to live in that garden unit and to be paid to live there.
That's awesome. So let's go back to your business side of it. When you first partnered up with RPN, what were you guys doing? Like how many properties? It took you a while to grow, and then I want to move into where you are now. But let's go back to the very beginning, your first property with him. Did you just start with one or did you start with 50 like you're doing now? No, I'm teasing.
Yeah. Well, we started buying property when our first partner, that's no longer with us, Carlo and I took the mastery course. So we took the course, and then while we were in the course, we got our first project property under contract. So it was pretty exciting. We only did one at a time at first. Actually, that's not true. Like the first year, we ended up buying, I believe, six properties. And so we did one first, and then we had two properties that we bought literally, I think 2 days, like a day apart, in like a month or yeah, about a month and a half later. And then did both of those at the same time. And then we ended up buying two condos in the same building that we did at the same time. So it kind of worked out that way because, or it worked out okay because Carlo and I were both learning. And so then we could both have a project at a time that we were kind of managing the construction.
That's like, no, you guys didn't mess around. Even though it worked out with,
Yeah.
it's like, boom, we're in it. We're doing it. We're serious.
Yeah.
And you were
Yeah.
still working full time at the time. So what were your days
Mhm.
like?
Yeah, I mean, I get up in the morning. I have an hour and a half call with my partners every morning, and then, head to work during that call, work from 9 to 5. And then after work is usually a networking event or property site visits for the construction projects, working with getting keys to tenants, once they moved in. Um, Getting on more calls with the team if I needed to. So like that's, most weekdays I would say were like that. And then every Saturday we meet for a few hours to work on the business and bring other people in from our that we've met throughout the weeks with our for our network and stuff like that. And yeah, I'd say like it was wherever I could fit it in. I would meet contractors before work. It's 7:38 sometimes. And if I had to like squeeze in any work, I would either do it at home at night or like get up at 6 in the morning and do something.
After
Because
getting
it
home
was a
at midnight.
lot.
After getting home at midnight,
Yeah. And hosting our networking event, I usually get home late on that one.
for sure. So
Yeah.
now tell me the craziest story, either dealing with the contractor or a situation that went awry, like that kind of stuff that makes people want to lean in and hear the tea.
I mean, I got a lot of stories. One that we're dealing with right now is a contractor that was on two projects of ours that I fired basically off the jobs, and they were only about halfway through, and it paid them to do as much work as they had done. It was a labor only bid, so that's something like we'll probably won't do again just because you have to have money readily available and trying to get um we do hard money loans, so we have to work with in the draw system. Can't just have money readily available for these projects. So got in a lot of trouble that way, but we're actually dealing with suing him for the work that he did because we're having other contractors come in and be like, I don't want to be responsible for this because it was done really badly, you know? And I didn't know. I'm not a contractor, you know, so I can only know as much as they tell me or my architect tells me or whatever along the way, you know? And then yeah, I mean, a couple things that this person did that we're kind of finding out about now, and we're actually going to pursue legal action is in one of the properties, the one you went to, he didn't pass the rough inspections. So then the contractor came in to finish the job, thought everything was fine, and then finds out when they're going to do final inspections that he didn't pass the rough inspections and all the mechanicals need to be replaced. And he
Wow,
refused to do it in writing, even though yeah, I did paid him for it.
that's
Yeah.
crazy.
So that's one. And then the other one, I mean, it was one of his guys poured concrete down the sump pumps and the water drain. And the first thing the new contractor had to do was dig all of that out so that the water that flooded the basement could get drained out properly.
Was it in malice or stupidity?
I
Was
don't
he
know. I don't know. That's the worst part is like, we could go back and look on the cameras or something like that, but I bet it was probably done during the job or something. I don't know.
wow.
But still, like I found out there's a lot of other things that we would have grounds to sue against. Just the mere how much I paid him for the job so far that and the state that it's in currently.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the money side of it, because I know that you guys are doing so many properties. You're closing two, three, four properties a week right now, sometimes. Like, I know it's crazy, and you have a big goal to close more. But when I first got into real estate, and for many, 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 many years, I always thought, oh, you have to have 20%, and then you have to have all the money to do the work, and then but I know that it's not like that now. From your side, how do you fund a property? What does it look like? How are you herding the cats to get the cash? And then how
Hmm.
are you doing? You mentioned hard money. I think this would be a good place to teach people about what hard money is. And then, yeah, I know you're holding the property. So let's talk about the finance side of what some of that looks like. So you find a property and you said, yes, we want to buy this one. What's the first thing you would do?
Well, we make sure that the numbers work, obviously. We're actually starting to bring an appraiser in to do like a desktop appraisal right away now because of how much we've learned and how much time has been wasted and things by waiting, till right before you buy it to appraise it. So that's a big part is just knowing what the actual ARV or after repair value looks like for the property. And there's a lot of steps that you have to take to find out whether the property is worth what it is or whether the rehab budget will be within range of what your initial numbers were as well. So yeah, once we get our inspections done, we get all of our numbers kind of like somewhat in place, then we bring it to our lender, our hard money lender, our broker that we use, and he finds the money based off of the numbers and the lender draw schedule that we submit. That lender draw schedule is basically the rehab budget and scope for the entire project. So yeah, so the way we structure our deals, we do hard money which is like institutional money, right? For the majority of it, that's usually about 90% of the purchase price and 100% of the rehab. That's what, yeah, and then they also, yeah, so they backfill the rehab funds. So you do need some money to start the project with, and you also need money to come out of pocket with to close the property. So most of the time, like 90% is a good rate. We had less than that when we were first starting out until we kind of built up a certain number of properties under our belts, right? And it's been one thing, after another that we've kind of learned in the first year and a half that we were working together is like you can't you can't get approved for a project that's over 100 grand if you've never done a project that's over 100 grand and finished it and refinanced it. So there's a lot of underwriting and things that you need to pass and show to a lender to get approved, but we've, slowly brought our leverage, up or so that we were lower so that we could keep buying more properties and coming up with less private funds. So that's been helpful. We're actually have a couple of 100% fund lenders now because of our experience. So we got qualified for that, which is pretty awesome. So basically, then you have to come with either the down payment if you owe one, and then the closing cost you're always going to have to pay. So we've raised private funds in a second position, lien holder position, to make up those three things. So closing costs, down payment, which those two together are called the cash to close, and then the initial startup capital for the rehab. There's always funds you need to pay in the beginning, the deposit to the contractor. The architect needs to be paid all up front before they submit any permits. And there's acquisition costs that you got to kind of pay back as well. So we try to get at least like 30 to 40% of our rehab budget. That's what we try to raise in private funds on top of that cash to close.
And that's where the good network comes in and having the experience and the track record to say we can get the projects done, we can get them closed. Having people that want to increase their own retirement fund or cash in their back pocket with interest. If we can keep the
Yeah,
money out of the banks and out of Wall Street and in America's pockets, I'd rather do deals with my friends than necessarily work with the bank.
right.
So that's really cool. Most of the properties you're keeping and you're just keeping for
Mhm.
long-term rentals, except for you have one Airbnb that you guys are doing. Is that right?
Two, actually.
Oh, two. Nice. So what made you go Airbnb versus long-term rental on those two properties?
Well, the one Oak Park was actually going to be a flip originally. I think we just ran the numbers near the end because for a flip you have to do so much, and we kind of decided during those two that we were working on, the Oak Park and the Logan Square one, that one contractor was on. We decided that we didn't want to do flips anymore. So we were going to see, like we heard at one of these networking events, that Oak Park is actually a good spot for Airbnbs. And so then we started looking into that and we looked into furnish finders and we're like, wow, we can make a lot from, midterm rentals for these programs like corporate housing or traveling nurses or things like that where they want to bring their whole family. So yeah, that we're going to try out the Airbnb thing for these two properties, and then co-living is the other thing that we've gotten into recently. So we have our first co-living property that should be done in July.
I love that. So let's explain to everybody what co-living is. And I think it's an amazing model to address both the affordability and for the landlord's pocket. If we as landlords can make more money on a project, it makes sense we would provide more housing.
Yeah, agreed. So, co-living is really just room rentals or rent by the room. So the way that works is you'll usually find like a big single family home that has many bedrooms. The ratio is like 3 beds to a bath is ideal as far as the cash flow goes and as far as people having enough bathrooms for the place. This single family actually has two kitchens that we bought, so it's ideal. And then it's 3 floors plus a basement.
How many bedrooms?
It's going to be a 9 bedroom, 3 bath. It's an 8 bedroom right now.
Wow. And so what are you guessing that you would get for each one of those bedrooms?
So we're gonna furnish all of them, which I've talked to a lot of people. I went to a conference on this and then just talked to people about furnishing just so that you can kind of control how much moving is going in and out of the house, but also like how much people are bringing in, because if they bring their own stuff, never know what's going to come in with it. As far as having that many people living in one house, and like the turnover, because we're going to offer midterm rentals as well as long term. Yeah, we're going to offer anywhere from 900 to 1200 a room
So you're renting it monthly or weekly?
monthly.
Because I know a lot of them will do it weekly. That is a lot more turnover also. It's a lot more affordable and you can live in an area you might not be able to afford to live. I guess it's house hacking for the tenant, right? A
Yeah,
renter's house hack.
yeah. And Some people like don't like the idea because they don't want to live with strangers or whatever, but there's also the opportunity to maybe meet people in there too and be in a more social environment than living by yourself or living in the basement of your parents' house or whatever. There's the affordability in living in a city is just awful and unattainable for a lot of people. So I think, a whole apartment is going to be probably around, 1,500 at the minimum to like 3,000, to live in the city, depending on what neighborhood you pick. So I think that, yeah, I think this is a way better option than having to go find some random roommate and see how that works out for the year, because you can always leave after a few months if it's not working out here, but it's a good price point, I think, for a lot of people.
Absolutely. Young professionals or college students or people relocating to the city or travel, like you said, traveling nurses. It's how, depending on what area you put the home and how you furnish it and what your rent is going to dictate the clientele you're going to get just naturally.
Yeah,
So. So yeah,
exactly.
that's amazing. I love that. And then you're only responsible if you're going to rent an apartment, you're responsible with your roommate or roommates. Everybody's equally responsible for like 12 months. In this case, you
Hmm.
come in and a lot of people that go to college, they stay in dorms or they rent with people they don't know that well anyway. And so it's in different parts of life, it's pretty normal. It's just
Yeah.
newer, it's a newer way to do housing nowadays, which I think is
Mhm.
going to be amazing and definitely address being able to afford to live in a neighborhood you wouldn't be able to afford on your own.
Yeah, and not only afford it, but like have room to pursue other things or save money or like, or just so over leveraged, these days with coming out of school or coming into the workforce. So I think I'm excited about doing some of these options.
That's awesome. And so, what area, neighborhood is that? Nine
It's in
bedroom.
Avondale,
Oh, nice. Right off the
near
highway.
Bucktown. Yep. Hmm.
That's going to be, yeah, you're right by the blue line there. I think the blue line's close, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. Lots of buses over there. Beautiful.
Yeah.
So, okay. And then, so how many nowadays with your business rolling how it's rolling? I've alluded to it a little bit, but how many houses are you like, what do you have up in the air right now? What are you working on? How many?
Yeah, so we have 27 properties that we've bought together in the last like 2.5 years. We're buying about one a week or so right now, and we're working up to buying one a day.
So, are you managing them yourselves at this moment?
Up until like a month ago, I was managing them completely on my own. We had about 18 filled rentals, but now I've kind of looped in our VA to start helping with some of the property management stuff. So that's been so helpful. And just like fielding some of those calls for maintenance or for utilities turning off or things like that. That's going to be a huge help. But we're still like self-managing up to this point, and I think that I haven't worked with a property management company yet, but I have heard from others that, it just like provides a better experience for the tenant if it's self-managed, depending on how you manage things yourself. But I think I do a really good job, and I'm training anybody else to do that as well. That's actually one of the most people hate property management, and that's one of the parts I actually learned to love after working on mine for, the last 4 years.
So you have 27 properties right now. You're saying you want to buy a one a day. You want to work that's 365. Okay, we've got holidays and stuff like that, but that's a lot of properties. So what is your actual goal that you guys want to have? Say, I know you have 12-month goals.
Yeah, I mean, right now we want to get up to that consistently. We have like 14 people on our team, including us. Most of them are working part-time, but a couple of us are full-time. A big part of it is just like having the team to sustain that, right? And then, yeah, just being able to like move through and actually like complete the projects is the other part that like we're working on right now. That's been challenging getting through some of our older properties and so that we can, focus on the newer projects that don't need as much rehab. That's the one goal. And then I think this business will kind of like continue going, and then the other one will be to like start buying businesses, start tapping into those networks that we've been building all this time, and kind of, yeah, I don't know exactly what that looks like yet, but that's kind of what we're talking about for level two.
And you can't do what you guys are doing without amazing and very concise systems put in place. There's no way
Mhm.
you could do and be successful like you are without systems.
Correct. Yeah. One of the things we're working on with, speaking of systems, is we're getting our CRM up and running. So we finally got someone who's actually knows how to do that and implement it. And now we're basically starting the migration to like have everything in there. So that'll be hugely helpful.
100%. So, if you were given advice to somebody that's maybe has one property, maybe they have five, maybe they have zero, but they really want to build up the portfolio, what would be the advice you'd give?
Yeah, I would just say like learn as much as you possibly can about the different steps that go into buying a property, because there's four different parts, right? And I think it's important to learn everything you can by going to some kind of education course or networking. Those networking is free, and you can usually get a lot of knowledge by finding a mentor or something like that. But I would say once you kind of learn the basics about every department, then it's really important not to keep doing everything yourself, because you're not going to like everything as much as the other thing. So you'll find out pretty quickly which one you prefer. And then I think it's important to find a partner or to find someone else that complements you on the other half.
Right. One of my episodes coming up soon is going to be with a facilitator for Clifton Strengths and
Cool.
speaking about somebody that complements your personality. You were mentioning at the very beginning here, oh, I'm not so quick at the numbers and this, but you have a partner that is pretty quick at the numbers. So, but you
Mm,
have different kind of aspects to your personality and things that come easier for you. And so, yeah, at the beginning, it is a lot of grind. We're doing everything, but you've got to have the yin to your yang when you're building.
yes, agreed. I'd say that to anybody.
Absolutely. Well, this has been awesome. I am so excited to continue to watch you what you're doing because it blows my mind. I'm just watching your growth. You've set goals, you've gone for them. It's blood, sweat, and tears. Not everything's worked out the way that you thought, but the thing that has worked out is that you're going towards your goals, and that's amazing.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the kind words and the cheerleading, and I really feel the same way about you and everything I've watched you go through the last couple years. So thanks for having me.
Yes, for sure. All right. So, if anybody wanted to reach out to you, maybe they have questions about bringing you a property or, where your meetups are and that kind of stuff, how would they find you?
Honestly, I think like the phone number is the best, but I also have Instagram and Facebook as well. So those are probably good ones to find me on too.
And I'm going to put the link for your
Mhm.
meetups. And so if
Yes.
somebody wants to come meet in person, such an amazing group of people that come to hang out with you guys. And I think that that's one of the most important things that you can do when you're coming into this space is to have other people that you know that are doing it also.
Yes.
Awesome. All right. Well, Keila, thank you. This was so cool. And I know you're doing things that I could not do just watching you. And I love watching you do it. So thank you for coming and sharing. I think there's a lot of great nuggets in here. And we will continue to watch your journey. Thank you for tuning in. And until next time, a wise woman will prosper. So go ahead, buy the field, plant the vineyard, and watch it multiply.